All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another week. Yeah, a big confidence boost this week in the FPV world, and some 3D printing stuff that I'm going to throw at you guys. And my co-host for tonight, my brother, who I'm bringing in now. Hopefully, guest talk. There we go. We're going to try and get the production levels of this stuff up, but everything in small steps, right? 1%, that's what we're trying to do. 1% better. Having our thoughts together is the 1% for this week, month, year. So yeah, I guess, how are you doing this week before we jump into all my things?
It's good. I wish we did these at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 8 o'clock at night, but hey, let's do this thing. Let's light this candle.
Yeah. It's been long days, but it's good. I did get a chance to fly this week, so
nice.
Super excited about that. Like I said, it was a big confidence boost the way I was able to fly, and I actually need to pull up those files, which I forgot to do, but I will do that. So yeah, big confidence boost there, and just excited about FPV in general, and seeing some ways to tie this into other hobbies, mostly 3D printing. I've had a couple ideas that I haven't executed on, but this one seems like it's a way to add to the community. So I'll tell you about this idea in a little bit, but I think we should just jump straight into some flying stuff. I feel like I'm about to be humbled, like I'm all hyped up on this stuff, but as soon as I actually show it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's what you're excited about? Cool, you still suck. But we'll see how this all goes. So let me go ahead.
Before the fall.
Yeah, exactly. Let me go ahead and screen cap with me and you. All right, so what happened this week was I wasn't able to get to the park, so I just flew in my backyard, which is actually the first time I did this. So that in itself was a little bit of a confidence boost, just knowing I can go in our backyard and fly around, which seems, I don't know, kind of obvious, but it's not the biggest space in the world, and I was like having so much trouble with hovering and keeping it kind of in one spot. I was worried it wouldn't be enough space, but I had a lot of fun, and yeah, I think it will just force me to be a little bit more creative with what I'm doing. So
do me a favor before we jump right into this. I guess let me quarterback a little bit of the production on here. I know you're assuming people that are watching this have watched
before.
Yeah, so
I gotta talk to the people who haven't watched before. All right.
Single shot of what is going on. Where you're at, just a quick like synopsis late in the day,
maybe
quick whatever you've done up to this point, and then like lead into what you're about to show.
All right, I can do that. So what's up, guys? My name is Nate Hibbert. I'm very excited to talk with you guys this afternoon about FPV piloting. It's a new hobby that I've picked up the beginning of this year, so like 2-3-ish months. I've actually bought my gear and been flying 4 times now. This is my 4th time out, and so we're just going to be going over what I've learned as, I guess I can kind of call myself an FPV pilot now that I've flown a couple of times, but I'm still extremely new to this and very novice. So I like sharing this journey, hopefully to inspire anyone who's like at least thinking about this or at all interested, that you can go out and do this for yourself, but also just to log all of this stuff for me to laugh at when I get better, to look back at, but also just to like understand how I learn hobbies, because like 6 months ago or 8 months ago I picked up 3D printing, and so instead of just jumping from one hobby to another, just studying like what are the things about new hobbies that I like and how can I get better at them faster, so I can get to the point of where I'm actually enjoying them, which I think I'm just on the cusp of that for FPV flying. How was that?
Nailed it.
Not too bad. One take. All right.
Yeah. All right, run that again.
Yeah, exactly. The good old days. All right, so
give me another one with more energy.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a lot of bad memories.
All right, this time make sure you say your name.
Oh man.
It's got a lot better. You can do those in one take now.
Yeah, no, we'll have to one day do a, I don't know, best of, like show all the mistakes and how long it used to take us to get like those 30-second blurbs. So that's why we're recording all this.
a goal that you had in mind for this footage? Because you said you were in your backyard last time you were in a park. Was there like, I want to see if I can fly in my backyard. I'm gonna try these challenges. I'm gonna XYZ. What was the goal for just flying in your backyard?
This is all like exploration at this point. So it's not even like I have a course in mind, or like I was just so happy to be flying. It wasn't until like the last battery that I had where I was like, oh shoot, like I should be doing some of the stuff that we talked about on the last week's stream. So I didn't really like do the goals that we talked about, but just so much like confidence in myself, and I was just so happy flying this time. I was like, oh, let me log where I'm flying, but also like mentally, like why is it so much easier, and why do I have so much more confidence flying this week versus the last 3 times that I've flown? So
yeah, and you said enjoyment, which was another like thing that stuck out to me. Did you not enjoy the last time at the park?
I think it was just an overwhelming of like, I suck at this. It's like I said, I kind of like that feeling because it pushes me to like be better and to learn more about it, and it's not just like something I can pick up and be great at, which means that probably most people aren't going to be able to do that. So there's like a little bit of barrier to entry there, outside of like the actual just buying of all the gear. So it was like there's just like a glimmer of hope. Like I said, like I'm kind of going somewhere where I'm like, oh, I could actually be able to like fly this thing and have some amount of control over it. I know I have an eon to go before I'm like good, or would be able to like record an actual usable video for any type of promotion or anything like that. But just the glimpse of like hope that I could get there, and it wouldn't take 3 years of flying this thing. It's like it's probably just a couple more sessions before I can like have a better understanding of how this thing moves in the air, and understanding like the elements, and sometimes birds just want to attack your drone and those types of things, so those like real world elements. Yeah, so just like all of that. So
just like the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
Last time you were frustrated because you ended on a low. This time you feel joy because you ended on a high, essentially is what I'm gleaning from why you have changed your feeling for flying in the park versus flying in the back. Even
reflecting on last time a little bit, like I think the low was just from like, I don't understand the technology. And I still don't understand like all the things going on.
But you're getting some type of this is why
familiarity
with what you're doing now, which is building up a little bit of confidence and a little bit more joy, because it's not so overwhelmingly everything is new, and it's not good when you feel like you're not accomplishing what you set out to do.
Yeah, it was just like I had all the gear, it was all like properly charged this time. I could just like sit out and do the actual flying. So like I said, there's so much for me to learn about the gear. Like I just now have it working. But that doesn't mean I understand. Like one of the things that I wrote down that I definitely need to learn is like, okay, what does the heads-up display actually tell me? Like what information is here? Why is it here? And then like, I don't think I'm going to tap into it yet where I'm going to start like moving that stuff around. I know that's a possibility, but I just need to be understanding like what is our SSI that we talked about last week. And I was like, I don't know. Like I actually need to start informing myself on that stuff so I can get the most out of these flights. But there was a couple of times that I was flying where like after the flight it tells you your stats, and it would say like 2 minutes, and I was like, whoa, I was in the air for 2 minutes. Like that's some type of milestone that I'm actually like getting good enough to fly for a little bit and not just like immediately crash.
Do they track PBs in that thing? Personal best? Do they track
no, not that I know of. That might be a setting, but it's not automatically added.
So when it said 2 minutes, you just personally felt like you accomplished something.
Yeah, because I was like, man, these batteries aren't lasting like nearly as long. Like I'm only able to like go up once or twice, and so I started like questioning if I like had properly charged them. And then I looked at the total time I was flying. I was like, oh, it's more than 10 seconds. Like this is why I'm able to fly for a little bit longer. So
feeling of accomplishment is another like why you're feeling joy.
Yeah. So that wasn't one of the challenges that we ever talked about, but that probably is like a pretty big milestone. Like be in the air for a minute, be in the air for 2 minutes, be in the air for 5 minutes, like, fly one battery without crashing would all be like good milestones to hit where it's like that's not a lot of pressure to put on yourself to just like fly. Like learning how to hover, which was like the first thing I wanted to do out the side of the box, and like land nicely. Like I think the bar, like in my head, like I didn't know where to put the bar, but now looking at it, I was like the bar is still really high, because even with the amount of confidence that I have, like I still haven't had a good landing on a platform that I was like actually aiming for. I have a couple attempts that we'll go over in just a second, but none of them were like pretty. It was just me like throwing the drone at the area and hoping for the best. So all right, I'm geeked up. Let's show some of these flights. So this is the first one. I have these in order this time, so from like the first couple of batteries to the last couple of batteries, and this one I just titled There and Back. It was, again, that's my own terminology, but like flying out to some point, turning around, and then trying to come back and land. So let's see how this goes. It's been a couple of days since I watched this, so if it sucks, I apologize. So this is my backyard. Like I said, it's not a very big space. I'm sure for this size drone, it's plenty. But just being able to like fly out, see myself, and then attempt to land on this little table, but you're just getting a nice picture of my foot. So that was as far as I got. But even that, if you guys had watched last week or seen where I've come, I mean, maybe Steven, you can tell me, like, to you, is that any more impressive or seem like I'm having like some skill?
Some type of control. I think last time you flew, it felt like there was no control.
Yeah.
Like you were just kind of getting it out of the air and then not knowing what is going on, and then it would just be, oh, here's a crash. Like you were like, oh, it almost felt like you were making decisions in midair to justify what just happened, more than this is like, oh, you went out, you tried to like see the space that you're in and do some type of turnaround to come back. There was a plan before you took off, whereas last week it just felt like you took off and was like, whatever happens happens. In post, I'm gonna justify what I just did.
Probably not too far from the truth. Yeah, you're right. Like I did have a lot more control this week, and I think it was like partially just understanding like the space is kind of constrained, so I really have to focus on like not going crazy out of control, because I didn't want to like go in my neighbor's backyard or on the roof or anything. Like there are actual like, if I fly somewhere, it's either going to take time or just be awkward for me to like jump someone's fence and like go get it. So it's just like, let's just try, like, yeah, there was just more pressure there, which now looking at it,
so having that wide open space, I think in theory feels better to start, so you're not like running into something. But in actuality, having these tighter area makes you focus more on control than just like flying it up and going somewhere.
Yeah, it's not like the simulator where I can just say like reset now. It's like, oh, if I crash, I gotta go get this thing.
And your wife saying like, I'm not picking that up anymore. You're just like, oh well, be a little bit more controlled with this.
I did rope her in a little bit at the end, so I was happy about that. I could just sit and keep flying. But yeah, like that's just another one of those like real world elements that you don't really think about, right? Like if you're flying out somewhere and you crash, like that means you have to go and find that thing and pick it up. So even a couple of times, like
so these like aha moment lessons that you're learning, I think you should like put these together.
That's what this live stream is for. We'll go back and chronicleize all this stuff.
Okay.
Or you can keep taking notes.
A refined video of just like, hey, what I learned when I first started was big area feels the most comfortable, but XYZ.
No, when I make an actual, like I think I will make a series of YouTube videos just like tracking all this stuff, because it is a lot of information. And I think coming from my perspective, which is like actually knowing nothing and starting, rather than a lot of people who have like are already making money with this hobby, like it's a little bit different where the information's coming from. So I'm excited to make those videos.
And I guess maybe instead of me like suggesting it like that, I'll just say something here, and then when we go back, it'll just be like, oh, let's clip this or make a video on large spaces versus small spaces.
All right, sorry. I want to.
That should go in your beginner video.
Right. No, that's what I was saying with like the style of videos and all that stuff. But we'll figure out how to do that. So I want to move on to the next video. But in I think all of these, if you watch the voltage, it has that like battery sign that's flashing, and then the voltage still is going like pretty crazy. So I don't know if that's just typical or what that is, but it definitely seems like the battery is like low, but even on the fresh ones that I just charged, like that's what was happening. So I don't know if I somehow hurt the batteries by fully charging them and leaving them for like 2 weeks or what is going on. So, and it's not like I've flown enough to know like, oh, these batteries are clearly crap. So that's just something I need to like, again, I need to learn more about the heads-up display, and just the batteries are still like the biggest technological part of this. That's a pain in the butt. I can't imagine, or I can't remember if I addressed this here or not, but after flying for a little bit, I did realize that my antennas came loose, which I think was just from like taking it on and off. I might have been like hitting them or like slightly turning them, thinking that like I know how antennas work at all. And they became loose from the base. So that's when I started to lose some of the video signal. So last week when I was saying I think it's because the drone is low battery and that's why the signal is cutting in and out, I think it was actually because the antennas on top of the headset were loose. And that's why the camera was cutting in.
That's where the signal goes out, not from the actual controller?
Yeah, so the signal from the... So there's two signals. There's the signal from the controller that's telling the drone what to do, and then the drone is sending video footage to the headset separately. So that's kind of like two things. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, so this is the next one. I forget what I called this one. Oh, this is my first flip that I caught on camera. I've done one before, but this is the first one I did on camera. So I kind of fly out in the middle of the yard. I get up in the air enough and then do a roll, which is left to right.
And that was done on purpose?
Yeah. I think to do anything like that, you kind of have to do it on purpose.
And what... That was something that you like where like I'm about to do this roll?
It was just like I don't have like a ton of space to go like smooth or like go really hard or anything, so like what is something I can do? So just in the moment I was like, I've done this in the simulator, like let me just try and do it in real life. And you can see like I tried a second one that did not go as well. I tried a I think it was a front roll. Again, terminology is not my strong suit, but I think I went full forward. Oh no, it was backwards. But I over-rotated, and then when I throttled up, it just like threw me into the ground. But the first one was like fairly smooth. I know going to left and right is less of a risk. But yeah, like even being able to catch that pretty horizontally, catch my mistake a little bit, and actually stay somewhat in the same elevation that I was when I started. This felt like a pretty big like accomplishment. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Is there another like confidence build on like crashing it so much last time you feel a little bit more available to take risks like this? Like if it drops from this height, I know it's not going to get broken.
Probably. I don't know if I've like thought about it that straightforward, but probably. That was something that I remember saying to Kate after the last time we flew. I was like, man, this thing actually can take a beating. So knowing that like I did crash it the amount that I did, I probably was a little bit riskier here. And the fact that I'm pretty sure like I've already committed in my mind to buying another one that's a little bit bigger. So it's like, if this one breaks, then I have to learn how to fix it or just move on to the next size. So you can even see in like my takeoffs and stuff, like there's just a lot more confidence to like fly out to a spot and, you know, like circle back around, make sure I'm not like going outside of my own little yard here. This one I called Bambi flying, which was a term I was just telling Steven that I think I'm going to coin if someone else hasn't already. But it's like just trying to hover, and I'm just so like wobbly. Like I can't quite get it. I'm bouncing off the ground, and then I like freak out and hit a branch, and that throws me into the ground. But it's like I would like to just like stay in one spot and be able to like turn, like, you know, how you see like Mavericks on all these other like GPS drones doing. But it's just so like wobbly, and I mean this space isn't like tiny, so I should be able to do that, but it's not good yet. All right, next, some more Bambi flying. So like I said, like the takeoffs are fine, and then I'm able to like kind of stay in this area, but it's just so wobbly. And I think this is partially like still getting used to the controller. But I mean, there's like wind you have to compete with. There were actually like some birds that were like swooping close that Kate was like telling me just were like trying to check out the drone, not necessarily like attack it, but like looking at it. So all those types of things, and even like the amount of throttle that you're using just to keep yourself level. It's not like you can just set the throttle to a certain amount and then you're just like going to stay exactly at that elevation. You kind of have to feather it to like know, you know, if you need to, if you're dropping, you need to add more throttle. If you're going too high, then you need to kill the throttle. So all those type of like little adjustments, which is kind of like the same as driving a car, right? Like when you're learning how to drive a car, it's not like you just hit the gas and it's either like an on or off thing. Like you figure out how to hold a certain speed, get up to that speed, and then hold that speed, like those same kind of things that I'm trying to do here. So
yeah, it looks like this footage is a little bit more like you have awareness of what's going on and you're trying to adjust. So I guess Bambi flying might be a good term for it, but it does feel like you're just getting your legs under you. Like you definitely don't have control, and it doesn't feel like you might be able to race or anything, but it does feel like you're starting to have a little bit more control over the situation instead of just like, this thing is doing something and I don't quite know what to do, what inputs to put in to do something else. Whereas like you took it up and you did a little flip and you like were able to catch it, so it feels like you have some control over your actions, and you can, like I said, it's hard to judge this because it doesn't feel like there's a goal, like you're just taking it out,
right,
flying it. But I do think that's part of learning. So maybe like having challenges of doing figure eights and going through the goalposts, it's just like maybe the goal should just be like stick time, like how much time can you put in, like you said, how much time could you be in the air,
right,
and how much time each week could you actually put into this thing to then try to just get your legs under you before you start even trying any maneuvers.
Yeah, I think just setting the bar like much lower, just to have realistic expectations. Like I'm sure there are some people who just like it clicks for them and they get it right away. But I think that I'm someone who like enjoys learning and is trying to always learn like new stuff, but this is just such a different skill.
Yeah, that win fail mentality is not like a thing that you've adopted or I've adopted. It's more like win or learn.
Right.
So if you're going out there and you're not like winning or completing it to what you thought was best, it's just like all the other elements that went into it to make you not achieve the goal is still a learning lesson. I think that process is something that we enjoy. It's just the learning process.
Right. So this is me, the first two parts of this was me just like crashing immediately. So definitely still happens where I'm just not
what was
quite
it, just
getting
like too
it.
much throttle?
Yeah, just trying to be too aggressive with the takeoffs. So this first one that I was taking off, there is a branch like not too high over my head. So I was just trying to like get out, but just gave it too much forward throttle, and just like immediately put it in the ground. And then the second time, the second time was actually kind of interesting. So I get up in the air, and I really should start recording my hands because I think that's a big part of the learning as well. I get up in the air, and then I tried to bring the throttle down to like half, because when I'm taking off, I'm usually going like probably 80 to 90% throttle, and then I tried to come down to like half to just level it out and float for a second. But I just like dive. So it just needs to be a little bit more like gradual than just like, okay, up to 90, down to 50, and that's how you like take off. So that's what I said, like kind of like the car thing, right? It's not like you get in a car and then when you're taking off from a red light, you like slam it to 100% and then back off. So that's effectively kind of what I'm doing here. But even doing
So is that
this,
a software possible adjustment versus just to get better at throttle control?
I think there is a little bit of room in the software to make things a little bit easier, but I definitely think it's more pilot error than it would be software.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess not like to prevent it completely, but to make it easier on you to not have to go like on off throttle so quickly.
Yeah, I think because of how drones kind of work, and it seems like you have to have kind of like 2 or 3 and be able to be thrown into a lot of different situations, like not customizing the software so much where it's like giving you too many like guardrails. Like you kind of want to be able to control this thing with
in full manual.
Yeah, and with like the default settings that it has. At least that's the way that I'm looking at it. If you start to like customize the software too much, I think that you might be hurting yourself more than you're actually helping.
I got you.
Yeah. So those are the first 2 flights. I was checking on the drone, making sure it was okay. I come off a lot softer. I'm able to like hover for a second. Somewhat around the same elevation. I'm still kind of bumping up and down a little bit, but I just called this one like recovering. It looks a little bit smoother, but like there's a couple of times where like, yeah, I'm getting like thrown down into the ground because the wind's gusting and doing whatever. I throw in another flip here and like I did bounce off the ground, but was able to save it again. So this to me was like when my confidence started building, where I was like, oh, I can actually fly for a little bit. I still end up putting it into the ground and not really landing, but it's just like this is the first time I was like, okay, maybe this is enough room to like do some flips and like fly around the thing and get a little bit of speed and go like full throttle in a circle and see what that is like and all those types of things. So just more confidence. But this was, again, I kept them in order of like when I actually took them. So this is just showing like as I'm getting, this is probably the second or third battery. As I'm getting more into my batteries and flying more packs, like I'm just feeling a lot more confidence. So let's see, I need to check the name. Oh yeah, so this was again that Bambi flying, and then this is when the battery was really dying and I could actually start to feel it. Like I'm at like 90% throttle here at the end and it's still like going towards the ground. So I'm like, okay, that's a clear indication of a dead battery.
Yeah, I guess this is like some familiarity that's growing, where it's like, okay, I'm not sure what is causing this now that you had some fully charged batteries and seeing like, oh, when the batteries die, I do notice a big drop off in power. It's not necessarily like the wind or me not figuring it out. It's the battery is the current problem. It's just like identifying what is causing you to interact with the thing differently. So like how I'm saying with like playing with the software might help you like launch a little easier. I think maybe you're right, just having everything completely manual to the, oh, when I'm doing this and it's acting like this, it's the wind. When I'm doing this and it's not really lifting off, it's the battery. Like just having some abilities to understand what is going on. Maybe that's confidence building, I guess. I don't really know what to categorize that as, but I think in the learning process, just identifying like what outside factors are causing different results so you can start eliminating and get better at what you have control over versus just like, I have no idea what's going on. I feel like no inputs that I'm doing are changing anything. I think that was my biggest frustration with the Tello that I had, was just like, in the beginning, it felt like I was trying to do so much and the drone was just not reacting to anything. And then I realized like, oh, the signals, it's not picking up the signals. So it's like overriding my inputs because it's trying to identify the height that it's trying to fly. And it's like, I didn't even understand that. I was just like, I'm trying to go left and it's not going left. It's like constantly jumping all over the place. What is going on? And that frustration of like figuring that out is like, oh, okay, now I have a better understanding of just what is going on. It makes me feel a lot better and in more control, even though I still don't have control over the drone when it's trying to auto-locate itself.
Yeah. No, I think it is confidence. Like a lot of this comes down to, I mean, there's a little bit of skill. Like I'm definitely getting more skilled with it, but just the confidence and like the trust. Maybe that's what it is. Like I can trust myself to not just like hit Kate, even though she's slowly walking around the yard. And this is where she was pointing out, like there's a bird that was like swooping. And just, like I said, I don't think it was like trying to take it out of the air. Like I'm sure if any bird wanted to take this out of the air, it could have. It's that small. But it was just like checking it out and flying close and like landing on branches that were close. So I was trying to like look up in the tree, but the video quality is so bad I wouldn't have been able to identify anything anyways. But this is like the longest period of time that I've flown. So this clip is like 55 seconds. I'm probably like 2 seconds of crashing on either side. So this is almost a full minute of me just like hovering around and being in the yard. So this is when I was like, oh yeah, like this is actually doable. And I even tried to land here at the end, but again, I'm just like kind of throwing it at the chair.
Yeah, coming in hot.
Yeah. So that doesn't go all that well, but like you said, like I'm actually in control. I'm thinking about like what I want to do and not just like, oh my gosh, like is this thing working?
Yeah, even the turning and stuff is not like smooth, but it does look like, oh, he's meaning to turn left. He's meaning to kind of look up.
Right.
Like it's more purpose movements being identified as I watch this. Whereas last week it just felt like the drone is in control and he's just attempting to make some kind of adjustment that's not working. Whereas this is like, oh, he's flying up, he's turning around, he's flying back and forth. It's just like maybe not the figure eight perfectly, but it's that same type of concept where you're going down and back and trying to figure out what is going on.
I definitely have the confidence to do a figure eight, so that's something I should be trying. But like I said, when I was doing all this, it was just like, wow, like I'm able to fly in this space. And I think what we talked about before, where it's like there's some stakes here. Like if I crash on the roof, which is very easy to do, like I'm gonna have to climb up there, which I'm just not in the mood for. So just being like a lot more aware of my area is kind of forcing me to. And even watching some of this back, like I am pretty much hovering in certain spots. Like it's not as smooth or as like as steady. Definitely not as steady as like something as like the GPS drone. But it's not horrible either. Like I'm understanding how to manipulate the drone enough to like stay in a general area.
Yeah, it's not like a perfect hover, but you kind of like bounce. But it does like give you control enough to like get your wits about you before the next move that you're about to make.
Yeah, like these couple of seconds here, just watching this back, like this is even giving me more confidence of like, it's a little bit of that Bambi, but it's not like my movements were so harsh. But I'm also not, I guess this is, again, like if I was filming in my hands, I think I'd be able to see this a little bit easier. But I'm not like very smooth with the adjustments. Like a lot of what I'm doing is like, okay, I need to go up to 90, so I'm just like going there. Or if like I need to adjust a little to the left, like I'm just going there and coming straight back. It's not like I'm gradually doing those things. So I think that's
a lot of hard on the gas, hard on the brake.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something I could work on.
Finesse.
So I think this one I'm just floating around. I think I thought about trying to like fly through the chair, which I think is going to be a challenge for next week. Oh yeah, I tried to land it in my own lap. I was like, maybe I'd just make this a little bit more risky and try to land on myself without hurting myself, which I don't think this drone could really hurt me, but even that one, like I just don't have the spatial awareness of like how far do I need to go, like how can I pull back. So all that is just fun.
I guess that's one thing I did really like about the Tello is like you can launch it from your hand and land it back in your hand. Like there's a lot more control. Those elements were very interesting to me, but I think like this, you have full control. So if you could fly around in a tight area, going like over and through the window and around the house, like that stuff is fun. But with the Tello, it's like it's more like you're fighting the drone to attempt to get it to do what you want, whereas this is like you're kind of finessing it where you want it, and it's just your control. You don't have enough control over it to make it do it, whereas like I'm trying to force the drone to go into these tight spots, and it's like fighting all the technology instead of like fighting the drone. I'm just fighting all the sensors. No,
this is just fighting my own inability. So this clip is good. This is me like flying around Kate in the yard twice, so it's a little bit more control. You can see like even my cornering, it's just not very smooth. The height that I'm at, like I really wanted to be like at her ankle height, but I'm just so high off the ground. So, and then at the end I try to throw it in the chair, and again just like completely whiff. So all things to consider, but again, like you can see the skills that are starting to develop. You can definitely see the confidence. In the last clip, I was actually like flying over the roof. It's like, all right, this thing should just like randomly drop out of the air. Like I have enough control if I'm hovering over something to like at least move forward before it drops out of the air. So this again was just like asking Kate to stand still so I could fly around her. And then just trying to like, yeah, I think here I was trying to like stay a lot lower, but it's just going to take practice, like to put those small inputs in. So I realize how high I am, and I'm just trying to lower it slowly without completely like bottoming out, and then turning back towards her. But it's something to work on for sure. Just like controlling it being that close to the ground.
Yeah, a lot of bouncing, which I think is kind of the first skill in hovering. Just understanding like how much throttle is going to take you.
Yeah, I think just having a goal for this kind of stuff too. Like I said, my goal for this week is going to be able to fly through those. We have like these plastic chairs in the back, and to fly through the arms. I think that will be something good for me to work on, because that's going to be low to the ground. It's going to mean I have to like stay level somewhat for a little bit. All those types of things. So. But yeah, like you can see, I'm still crashing plenty. It's not like, oh, I've like it's clicked and I've figured this thing out now. Like it's still a lot of just confidence building and just learning like all the different things. It wasn't very windy out. Like you're not going to see like the branches or anything like moving that much. But it was definitely noticeable when I was flying that I was like being pushed around. And so that's why I said like, I'm coming to the realization that I probably want something bigger than this. So jumping up to that 3-inch size is something I'm more and more interested in, just so I can fly outside and not have to fight the elements so much.
Will that bigger drone carry a bigger battery, giving you longer battery life?
It's still a trade-off, so it will definitely carry a bigger battery, but it has bigger motors, and depending on how much like weight you have, and all those types of things. So It's not like bigger battery equals more fly time necessarily, because it's actually trying to do more. So yeah, this was the last one I took. So this was the last battery that I was flying. You can kind of see I combined all those things, like being able to stay inside the yard, be able to like recover when I get too close to the ground, and then even throwing some like flips in here. But yeah, this clip is, you know, I do crash like once or twice, but this clip is almost 2 minutes long. So just a lot more confidence.
Airtime.
Yeah. So this is on the simulator, like you don't even think about like all the crash time and all the time you have to like go track this thing down and all that. So I guess partially this I wasn't flying, but it's still a good amount of time in the air. So yeah, that's this week's film review. I feel better. Like I said, I feel a little bit humbled after watching that stuff, because I was like, oh man, I'm nailing it. And then watching it, like, I'm still like bouncing around all over the place. Like it's not like I have full control.
It is a huge improvement from last week. So
let me just quickly, so you don't have to go back to last week, but let me just quickly see if I can find one clip from last week.
I do think it's a little more interesting to watch when it's a smaller space, because you get a little bit more like perception of speed, perception of height, perception of distance. Like where that big field was, it was like what, 15 feet from that picnic table to where you kind of
way more than that.
Oh,
this
it
is
just kind of felt
like
like you kind of
10 times the size probably. But yeah, this was like the best clip that I had, and I'm like so high off the ground. Like I'm still doing that like Bambi flying, but even like more herky jerky. So that's what I said. I think recording these things like for myself is a huge confidence boost, just to see like where I've come from.
Yeah, another thing I just picked up is like it almost feels like you're thinking through the steps very slowly. Like, I'm going to fly over here. All right, now I'm over here. Okay, now I have to turn to the right. Okay, I'm going to turn to the right. Where, as the last video that just showed, it was like a lot more fluid what you were doing. Even though that last turn, you just kind of, it felt like you were a little bit more.
Yeah, but again, that's so much higher in the air. So I actually like have that time. And that's all I was practicing. I was trying to like fly back and forth between those tables. So then that was the best clip I had from last week. So yeah, I think you're 100% right, though. Like, I just have to, probably even before I arm the drone, I should be like, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? Because like I said, it was probably like I have 6 batteries. I was probably 5 batteries in before I like asked myself that question this last time out. So definitely like before you even get up in the air, like what are you trying to accomplish? And if it doesn't happen, that's completely fine. Like if the wind blows or you crash or whatever. But like the couple of seconds that you have in the air where you're just controlling, like have a purpose for that time, I think is a good thing for me to think about.
Yeah, I think it might be just from watching you kind of in the backyard, just like play time. Just like maybe having those strict goals like is slightly frustrating because you're not even close enough to being able to accomplish any of those. But just like setting up time where you're like, okay, I'm just trying to get better. Let me just play around with this thing. Because I think the flip, added a layer of enjoyment, like doing the front flip, doing that.
That's true.
Right, doing all that stuff. I think just like, let me just fly this thing around, period, and get in air time. Like whatever I want to do. Okay, the wind is pushing me down when I pass the house over here, so let me stay in this little area. My wife is out there, let me fly around my wife. I want to go through the chairs. Like, I think the idea of me giving you challenges and then you accomplish those challenges is a very interesting idea. But I think because you're so
it's too soon
at this, I think just play. So just have a goal as you're, like you said, right before you arm it. Just like, you know what, I'm gonna try to do this, and then just do that. And I don't know if you decided to do that flip like before you took off or while you were in the air, but I think all of that like jazzy, in the moment, tempo changes. Do that, and then just get your confidence up.
Even what you're saying,
stay in the air. I can turn. I can take it tighter. I'm trying to go lower. I'm just trying to do the thing that's whatever's in front of me, just to see if I can figure that out.
No, I think you're 100% correct. Even with how you're saying, like, you can visibly see in this last clip that I played where I'm like, okay, I have to fly here, now I have to turn. Like, it was just very, like, computer code almost that I'm, like, robotic inputting. Yeah. So now being a lot more, like, fluid with that. And, again, thinking about, like, why I decided to do a flip instead of, like, a smoother turn, which is something that I would count as a more of accomplishment, but it's like, okay, I'm hovering, like, what are my options? Like, what are the things I can do here? It's like, I don't really know how to do anything, but I've tried flips in the simulator before. Like, let me at least see if those translate to the real world. So I think that is a big part of it. Just, like, you have to have a few sessions of just, like, playing around before you set, like, hard goals of, like, okay, this is how I'm going to get better. And in typical fashion, I start with, like, not the hardest goal possible, but I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do the first time I go out and fly, where it should have just been like, okay, I just need to, like, again, fly for 30 seconds, fly for a minute. And then in that minute, I'll kind of, like you said, do like the jazzy thing of just how can I, like, what are my options here? What are some things I'm willing to try? What seems fun?
Yeah, are you doing anything else with the simulator? Do you ever turn it on and just play around with that?
I don't, but I just turned it on at the beginning of the stream, and we can actually jump into it a little bit here. I do want to talk about the 3D printed thing, but we'll do this now.
Because I almost feel like you should spend more time in the simulator, just like, in the simulator, I want to do this, so I get some muscle memory. And then when I go out, I can try some of these things in real life.
Right.
So it's like you can almost like play around the simulator and then play around. And I think you can create your own challenges that way, where it's like in the simulator, I'm able to do XYZ. I want to see if I can now translate what I did in the simulator to real life. Like, see the speed and all that stuff that's happening here is like, I don't even know if your drone is capable of this kind of speed or anything, but you have a lot more control, I think, because there's more power, but I could be very wrong. But just like that turn that you just turned, I don't know how closely that will relate to real life.
So
like,
I actually
able to go out and turn smoothly like that in real life, or is it just like the drone doesn't even have the power to do that?
No, I think my drone has the ability to, like, turn smoothly and all that kind of stuff. I did actually just switch. So all the other times that I've flown in the simulator, I've used a drone similar to the one that I have in real life. But I just switched to this. I guess I can show them. I just switched to the slightly bigger one, because this is closer to the 3-inch one that I've been looking at, which I, again, should find the name of. But I've been flying this one, which is very similar to this Noob drone in looks and, I would assume, flyability.
So all that like weight, top speed, torque, drag, I'm not saying those are real stats, but theoretically, jumping up from that small one to that 3D,
Shrieker.
is that 4 or 5? Is it just the picture that looks funny on there?
One.
It almost looks like it has 5 propellers, but maybe it's just a picture of that.
No, it's the antenna on the back, but it's only 4.
Is it is that much heavier than that small one? Is it that much torque than that small one? Is that like a realistic thing where you go, oh, this one is capable of this, and this one is capable of more or less?
Again, I haven't flown enough to like give you an accurate estimation, but just based off of how this game does the gravity, I would assume for like the physics in this game, it's probably accurate, but couldn't translated to like real world, it's probably not quite like that.
Okay.
So this is the smaller one inside the simulator, and you can definitely tell like I'm not going nearly as fast. Like I'm not shooting down this thing like I just was with the other one.
The other one almost looked like twice as fast.
Right.
But I'd be interested when you get it in real life if that 3-inch one is that much faster or that much torque or horsepower, whatever you're calling it.
And what you were saying earlier of like play in the simulator and then translate that stuff to real world, that's actually exactly what happened. Because I was just flying through these little forklift things, and I was like, oh, like that's a little bit bigger, but similar to the gap that I have in those plastic chairs outside. Like that would be a lot of fun to try and fly through those. I don't have nearly the amount of space, but again, I think actually flying in a smaller area will help me get better, faster. So this is what I was doing on the sim as we were just setting up for the live stream. Because again, like I know I don't have the ability to fly around a shipping container or a shipping yard, right? Like just doing stuff on this scale is not something I have the room for. So what is something I have the room for? Like going through these small gaps, which I think is good practice, and it feels like I'm accomplishing something. As to where like just flying a figure 8 is like it's cool, and it's probably good to like learn how to turn like this. And even the other I think it was last week where we talked about like flying around goalpost and like what does that look like, and doing all those like kind of skill drill things. But again, if we were like compare this to soccer, like your first time playing soccer, you're probably not running through like dribbling practice, right? You're just out there like kicking the ball and like having fun. So I think
it reminds me of going to watch you play soccer when you were younger. And just, like, I'm sure I did it because I played soccer when I was young, but you don't like take any of that stuff in. But like everybody was just like at the ball, like kicking anything that was in front of them, not necessarily even the ball. So it's kind of like that's where you're at with the drone. It's just like I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just anything that's close to me, I'm trying to do that thing.
Right.
And I agree with you. It's like you have those dribbling drills, you have the like cone drills that you're doing, you're having the down and backs, you're having shooting practice, you're having defense, you're having sliding drills. Like I think there is a level of play that you have to accomplish before you start adding those drills. And I think because we are high reachers, I think we just go after that stuff. Like, Massey did that. A bicycle kick. That's the first thing I'm gonna do as soon as I get outside. Is a bicycle kick. It's like you don't even know how to kick the soccer ball, but you're gonna go and try to break your neck, try to do this thing.
Right.
So,
we see the end goal, and then we're like, okay, how do I get to this end goal? Like very diligent practice for 10 years. It's like, all right, I'm starting day one. Like, let's go. But it's just not realistic, and it's like that's. I can't remember if I said this on stream or not, but it was like if that was my first time out flying, and my goal was like to be able to just hover in one spot. Like, one, that's not very fun, and it's not going to, like, leave that, like, taste in my mouth of, like, I have to get out and do this again. And I think that's where I was at for the first, like, 3 times flying, where it's like, it's cool. This is going to be kind of a grind though, to like get good enough to like do the things I want to. So I just have to like be diligent. And that's the whole reason, like, I have a podcast at Monday at 8 p.m. Like, so I have to do it by then. And that's how I'm going to get better, like once a week. But now that I know, like, I can do it in my backyard, I can just do, like, I don't even have to fly all 6 batteries if I don't want to. I could just, like, have some fun doing flips and, like, getting better at cornering and those types of things and, like, trying to fly through stuff. Like, I will probably be doing it more than just the once a week. And it's not something where I'm just, like, completely... It wasn't like I was dreading it, but it was, like, there was a certain amount of pressure to...
Yeah, that took the joy...
Yeah, a little bit. It did take the joy to just be like, okay, this is the goal. Like, it was almost like work at that point, where it's like, I mean, if this was my job, that'd be cool. But it's like, you know, I'm just trying to get this thing done and check it off a checklist rather than I just need to go up and, like, you know, the goal of being able to fly for 2 minutes straight is something that, like, I want to try and do.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about, like, setting a consistency into what you're doing, and then making sure you're still enjoying the thing. Like, I think these Monday night podcasts are not enjoyable to me as much, but it is like a benchmark when Nathaniel can check in. And I think this is a needed piece,
Right,
kind of for you, like, in this learning process. Otherwise, it will be like, I'm going to put it off because I'm doing something else. I'll put it off something else. There's like a check-in with somebody else. So I don't know if the podcast is super necessary, but just like having somebody check in on you as you're doing a thing, I think is a necessary piece of the learning process.
Sure.
Otherwise, there's going to be like a stalling out or just like a quitting on, not to say that you quit, but there's going to be like a long delay in your learning process because you're just going to put it down for a while and not come back to it. Whereas this every Monday, it's like, I have to do something this week. It doesn't have to be super amazing, but it has to be something. So that first time you went out, it was like, I think just even talking about it and being like, this is not the correct way to move forward with this. We need a better goal. We need a better challenge. We need a better plan. Than you doing it this week. It was like, okay, yes, the challenge piece of this, it might be something that we add, but really what it needs to be is just me learning. And I think identifying that, like, play is part of the learning process, that should be your goal. It shouldn't be that generic, though. I think there needs to be some, like,
I think an amount of time is good.
Yeah, that's what I was
even
going to say. Like
thinking
some
about other
air
hobbies,
time, or just like time put in, or something.
Yeah. Ugh. Even thinking about other hobbies, though, and like you were saying, like, it kind of was. I was starting to think about other hobbies already because I was just like, this seems so, like, stressful
Daunting.
and not like the fun thing that I want it to be. So now that some of that fun is back, I think it is just like an amount of time that I have to put in with it, because that's how I learn new tools, right? Like, with the 3D printer, I knew I had to learn. I didn't have to, but a big part of that was being able to create my own things, which means I have to learn how to 3D model. And so when it came to attacking a new software, which is something that I've done a lot more than attacking a new hobby, which is like, I just have to put the time in. Like, I know I'll figure this stuff out, but it's just like, I have to set the timer and be like, okay, I'm going to spend an hour inside of Fusion 360 because that's the way that I'm going to get better with this thing. It wasn't necessarily like I have to model this very specific thing. So even thinking with hobbies in the future that I want to do, I think that will be a good reminder. Like, when I first start with it, just completely, like, maybe set a timer if it's like feeling like it's that, like, I just have to push myself to do this, but just making sure that I'm spending time with it consistently is a huge part of the equation.
Yeah, I think just tracking, like, why wasn't this enjoyable? Why was this enjoyable? What now has remotivated me to spend time with this? What made me pick it up in the first place? I think there's, like, a constant evaluation that you have to be doing while you're doing this stuff. I think will help you. Where I'm more focused on the business side, but I think this learning process is applied to both business and hobby. And I think the same, like, burnout in business is the same burnout you can feel in the hobbies, but I think there has to be a level of enjoyment to keep going. I think the monetary piece of business makes it enjoyable, at least for me. But I do think there needs to be a 10,000 foot view of, like, is the money a good enough reward, or should this thing be more enjoyable. I guess we're at completely different points in our lives, but I would assume we'll be having a business again together, and I would like that next business to be financially beneficial and more enjoyment, because I think there were a lot of businesses that we did in the past that was like, oh, this is super fun, and then we turned it into that grindy piece where it's like this loses the fun.
Right.
Not necessarily stay in that fun zone, but just like find the balance in that next business where it's like, okay, now's the grindy time. All right, now's a little bit more of an enjoyment time. I think the traveling was meant to be a little bit more of the enjoyment, but it was still like bam, bam, bam. Like I guess going to the Arch was in theory what I wanted more of those trips to be, but it just never turned into that because we had too much going on.
And that wasn't something we had like verbalized. We were like,
No.
oh, this will be fun, but it wasn't like, hey, we're gonna make a point to have fun on this trip.
And I was so like fried by the time we even did any of that. I was just
Right.
like
Your energy was just sapped.
exhausted.
Yeah.
I think the thing that like brought that joy back in was like we went in there and just talked to that lady, and then she gave us free tickets. It was like, I'm back energized. But it was like we didn't have enough time, and then I was trying to justify like, do we spend the money to do this?
Yeah, it was like we had like an hour before we got to the airport. Like it was just like the very last thing that we had to do. So
he was like, oh, I think we might actually have 2 tickets, and I was like, oh, I'm back in this, baby. I'm in this all the way. I couldn't justify spending that amount of money just for like an hour. Like that thing is like a day.
Right, because we were just like speed running it.
30 minutes. Yeah, just like walking over there was just like I was just so tired from the presentation and just everything. It was just like I just want to go home. I purposely planned a later flight so we could go see the Arch, but like at that point I was just like, let's leave because I'm done. But I think that it just identifying that and being like, hey, in these businesses, let's make sure that like we have fun time. And I think fun time comes with like new ideas, refreshed attitude, like more ability to like get more done when you can take breaks. That wasn't ever anything that I ever thought of, because when you're younger you just grind. But now as I get older, I'm just like, hey, if we're gonna do this thing and I do want the next business to be a little bit more of a longevity business, let's make sure we're not burning out on whatever the next thing is. And we're using more of our skills. I think that was another identification for the businesses that we have in the past. It was like, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do the thing. We should be finding out what we thrive in and then hire out the rest of the pieces, which I think with the very last business we started doing, but it was just like too little too late. It was just like, I'm kind of over this, and you were kind of over everything too. So it was just like, all right, let's shut it down.
Yeah, I think we had talked about that, like as brothers, we want to add fun. So we just like started playing games and like having board game nights with like more people, and that was part of it. But I think not just like completely separating out the fun as like, okay, we have this like, you know, spend this 2 hours playing video games together and now we've acquired the fun for the week. Like,
then it's back to work.
Right, exactly. Like we have to build that into some of the things that we're learning and trying out as well.
Yeah, and I guess I'm looking not more specifically, but just like picking up a little bit more on like Google's attitude to work, and you see even like YouTubers too, is like they have a lot more like fun and playtime, and they're just like, as long as the tasks get accomplished, they're all good. But they have like teams of people where it was just like a lot of me and you. It was like a lot of me and you doing a whole bunch of people's work. We were just very efficient working together, and I think that was like the blessing and the curse, where it was like we are extremely good at like, hey, we could do this thing, and me and you could do all of it, and then as soon as that's done, we can also do these 5 other things and do all of it, instead of like, hey, let's brainstorm, let's strategize, and like build a business with multiple hands on it. And even like when we started hiring people, it was like we can't even explain the jobs to them because they're coming too rapid and we're doing too many things, where it's just like we needed to just focus on one thing instead of trying to start too many. And I think that most of that blame falls on me, and I think this is why the next thing that I want to do is just like, let's do this one thing and use our skills, not necessarily like, hey, we could do this, and as soon as we start this, 10 more opportunities are going to start up and we can do all of them. It's like, I have an idea for this. I think your skills will fit in here. I think my skills will fit in here. Now let's find the rest of the team around us that lets us work in our zone of genius, and then make it like a job where we're not putting in 24 hours a day, but we can like sleep, enjoy ourselves. Kind of like
the basics.
Yeah, kind of like doing a little more real estate, where I was just like, hey, we could actually do the real estate in the way that I am doing it currently with other people, where it's just like, hey, could you come down for a week or to a month and just put in like 6 to 8 hour days, and the whole rest of the time we can enjoy it. And the 6 to 8 hour days that we're putting in doesn't have to be like manic, because we can hire people to do some of the plumbing, the electrical, the windows, whatever. I just need your help, like doing some drywall, doing some painting, doing some knockdown, doing like changing up the yard, like stuff that is grunt work, but it doesn't have to be like this all has to get done in these 8 hours. It's like we can kind of take our time. I need you as like a backup or an additional hand, not necessarily like it's me or you.
The horsepower,
and, yeah. We have to do everything.
Yeah. No, I think you know, going after these hobbies is definitely opening our eyes to a lot of stuff with the businesses that we've done. And that's what I said. Like,
yeah, and I guess I would consider this playtime, because there's no real like business. We are just talking and hanging.
Right.
But I think this is a necessary piece, where it's just like we need to just sit down and talk and hang out, more than just like, hey, here's a business meeting, here are the 15 things that we need to do, this is what I need you to do, I need you to do this, and then when you're done with this, get with this person, talk to this person. I don't like doing this, so you're gonna have to take over this job now too. It's just like, what is that? Just you can't go that far? Oh, they're just changing up the, oh, now it's looking all bad.
I can't fly here.
Just identifying like this
oh
time needs to just be set aside for talking, communicating, and seeing what comes out of this, more than just like this time is set aside to make sure all of these tasks get done. I think just identifying like what is too much work. That was something that I never really calculated. It was more just like, all right, we need to grind this out, and we're young and that's what we're going to do. But now we're getting older, and it's like, okay, I don't want to just work, period, and do nothing else. I do want to like travel with my wife, go fishing, enjoy myself, hang out with my brother, where it's not like we're doing task back to back just because we are efficient at it.
Yeah, I think it is kind of a blessing and a curse, like how well we work together. So it was like we're always just finding new things to do together. This is that hovering thing I was talking about, though. Boy, I cannot get
and I think another identified piece is like people would ask us for help, and I'd be like, yeah, we can do that too, yeah, we can do that, yeah, we can do that. It was like,
yeah, the yes and.
Yeah, I think Desi, when I sat down with Desi, and she was like, this is the reality of the thing, like the more you say yes to other people is the more you're saying no to me. And I was like, oh, I never looked at it like that. So I was just like, yeah, I can't continue to ride this like yes wave. At some point somebody's catching a no, and I can't consistently be my wife.
Right. Yeah, you still
much
only
as
have...
I love to work, I like being married a little bit more than that.
You still only have 24 hours a day, so...
Yeah.
Alright, I'm going to stop giving you guys a headache with this flying. This is
It was looking good. Now in the cave, it's not looking so good.
Yeah, this is a fun challenge, though, if I can get in here. This is also the bigger drone that I switched to, so... Oh my gosh.
I think it's just more finesse. I think if you had more finesse, it's like... You're giving it just a little too much power and you're slamming into stuff.
Right. Well, it's I heard someone's video I was watching was like, even moving this thumbstick forward is like giving you throttle at the same time. So that's what I'm not calculating for. Like, I can do the throttle and just kind of hover in here. But as soon as you start pushing forward as well, that's going to push you up in the air, just because that's how drones work. Like, they can only really push you that one way. So there are more things. But once I get
so it's almost like up with the left, and then as soon as you go up with the right, you need to go down with the left to compensate.
Just for like a second, because then it's just changing the angle.
Okay, brother. But what just happened there?
I don't know. It starts to click. So
you just like, it spent you 10 minutes like banging around the walls to like, okay.
This is a little bit what I was talking about, though, of I fly the drone like I fly a plane. Not that I've flown planes anywhere besides simulators, but it's just like that's how my brain works. Like I have to be moving forward. And like even the movements that I'm doing, like some of them are kind of drony, like just being able to do a 180 and do the flips and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do is like mimic a plane, because that's how my brain works. And like when you see footage of something flying for the portion of my life where I didn't know what drones were, which was the majority of it, like that's how things fly. So that's how you think this quad should handle. So it's just kind of retraining myself, and not retraining, it's training myself to like understand what this drone is actually capable of.
Interesting. Yeah, I think this is where the play comes in. It's like if you're very used to airplanes and like pitch and yaw, but the drone is capable of so much more. I think just more stick time allows you to go, oh, I could turn it like this and turn up on the side and then throttle and it does this.
Right.
I think comes from play, not necessarily like flying in a figure eight and doing XYZ. It's like you just have to go out there and move the sticks around to go, oh, if I do this, then this happens. Like banging around in that tunnel. Whatever you did to like click, it just like clicked and then you were able to fly up out of there. I think that just comes from playing around with the thing.
Right.
Like riding a bike. I think you just ride a bike enough to learn how to ride a bike. It's not like you sit down on the couch and it's like, okay, what you're going to do is put your left foot on the pedal, then you're going to move it.
True. That's a good analogy. Like it's hard to learn how to ride a bike. Like most people who learn how to ride a bike come out of it with a scraped knee, like at the least. So it's kind of just getting out there and seeing how it's done.
Yeah, and I guess maybe the Tello is like the training wheels of flying in the drone. And I think once I identified like, oh, there's a bunch of training wheels, so I don't get to really do what I want to do, it's not enjoyable anymore. Like the freedom of flying a drone is kind of taken away. And it's not like cinematic enough to capture footage.
Once I get going, it's okay. All right, I'm not going to give you guys that headache again. Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I was like, I was never in this for the GPS drones. Like, I think that's cool, but it's just not for me. Like, I'm not a videographer or anything like that where that tool would be useful. I'm much more into just like learning how things work and like nerdy stuff that not everyone can do, like the 3D printer, which is a lot more like consumer friendly, and our cousin actually just got one. I don't know if he saw that, so I'm excited about that. And the same thing with the drone, like it's pretty consumer friendly. Like I'm sure to do this 5 years ago was way more expensive than $200 to get into this. And a lot more like complicated. There weren't all the tutorials and all that kind of stuff, and even companies that there are now like focusing on getting new people into the hobby. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a very good time to get into FPV, as it's kind of before it's like DJI stepping into the space with them even kind of having a flop with their drone, where it's like, yeah, there's still some I don't know if it's like exclusive. I don't really like that it's exclusive, but there's like a skill cap that you have to get to
barrier to entry.
Yeah, there's a barrier to entry. That's a good way of putting it. There's a amount of skill that you have to enjoy this hobby. It's not just like I don't know what other hobbies you can kind of just jump into or anyone can do, but it's something you have to be intentional with and find motivation to just be bad at for a while until things start clicking. So I think that's where we're at. The last thing I want to talk about real quickly, this is more of a business idea, so I hope this doesn't go too long, as we're already over an hour, and I wanted this to be less than an hour, but that's how things go sometimes. I saw Mr. Steele doing a Facebook Live video sometime this weekend, and he, inside the video, took his camera that he was doing it an Instagram Live or whatever, and put it up to the eyepiece in a pair of goggles that was hooked up to the drone that he was flying. So he had two pairs of, it was like so janky, and I was like, there's got to be a better way of doing that. Like I understand the struggle of like wanting to share it in live time, which is a hard thing to do, but it just came across my head that this the goggles that I have, I like them because I can remove this piece, which is basically just to go up to your face and has a little bit of a lens in there to give some distortion, so it doesn't look like you're just looking at a flat screen. But this piece is removable, so if I could 3D print something that would slide in the same way that these eye pieces do, that would hold the phone in an orientation. So it could be like he's talking to Instagram Live, and then he's like, when he's ready to fly the pack, he can just slap it on here, and then we could see exactly what he's doing. I don't know if he would actually use it, and actually my only like step or challenge for this week, it's not really a challenge, but like the action step that I want to take this week is just reach out to him and see if that would be something he's even interested in. Because it basically means he has to have this exact headset, and I don't think he would find this headset all that useful. But it would be a question to have, and it might push me to do like some live flying stuff if I had a contraption like that, where it was like I could go to a park, I could sit down, I could talk to you guys for a little bit, and then I could throw you guys in the headset. You guys could watch exactly what I'm doing.
Interesting.
And it would all kind of work out that way.
It might even be an opportunity to like, you can use my headset, because I know you're probably not going to go and buy one of these, and I built this contraption for me. Is it interesting if you're able to... Was he doing it in his house, or was it on the park?
Just at his house. The other thing that just crossed my mind, though, is I don't think he can actually use this headset with the... Well, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. There's like some technical stuff that I'm not exactly sure of. I think he flies analog, so it should be able to work, because there's two different types of like video feeds and all that. So...
I'm sure just bouncing ideas around with him would be helpful.
Right. And it was just like that was a way that I could add value to the community, like being a complete novice at flying, but understanding like the restrictions of the technology enough to build something that would be helpful. So that was my inspiration, and just some like crossover in my two worlds of 3D printing, which I've looked to do, but I want to do it in like a pretty practical way, not just like... I don't know, those landing bases seem kind of cool and whatever else, and maybe when I'm getting better at landing, I'll build one of those. But for the time being, that was like immediately the idea I had. I was like, oh, this thing is removable. I wonder if I could model something that would fit as well as this does. It's a pretty snug fit, but I feel like I could measure it out and figure it out. And then just build... Instead of having it for your eyes, just build something where you could like set your phone on here, and it would be a little tray to hold it, so you could just quickly go back and forth from talking to the camera and like having people watch what you're flying. So there's my 2 cents on that idea. We'll see where that goes. Let me see. I had some notes.
Oh, now at the end.
At the very end. No, we covered everything.
Over, you're like, oh, I got some notes that I should probably look at.
I covered it all. I just wanted to recap real quick here at the end. The challenges for this week.
I think just play. Play is your challenge.
Yeah, I'll add that.
In air time.
Okay. But the first thing is to research the HUD. Like, I want to be able... The heads-up display. I want to be able to understand why
while you do this wrap-up, take me off. That way you can just recap and then close out.
All right, so we'll recap for this live stream. I want to be able to do 3 things. The first one is to be able to research the heads-up display on the... actual drone itself. There are readouts and stats that I'm getting that I don't understand at all, and I think that's a barrier that I need to get past, of like actually understanding the information that's in front of me, so I can fly better and know when batteries are dead, and just understand the stats that this thing is giving me, which is giving me for some reason because they're important. The second thing is I want to be able to fly through small gaps. I think that hole in the armchair that I'm trying to fly through is about a foot, maybe 2 feet wide. And if I was able to do that by next week, I would count that as a huge win and just another one of those like confidence boosters, and would make me want to get out and fly more, being able to do stuff like that. The second part of that is just the play time that we talked about, being able to stay in the air for a minute or two. I think that those are things where my brain can just kind of work through how does this thing actually work, the spatial awareness that I'm getting, and just kind of that like jazz element of just like, okay, I'm in this position, like what's something cool or creative that I could do, specifically talking about like when I'm flying and just hovering, instead of just trying to stay hovering for a minute or two, like what are some things that I could throw into that would be pushing my limits a little bit, but also like just challenging me to be creative with the drone while it's in the air. And then the third thing, this is more of an action step than a challenge, but I do want to reach out to Mr. Steele and anyone else who I see going live on Instagram doing like actually flying packs, because I just think it would be a cool tool for them to have a way to share that experience that would be a little bit more streamlined than them like fiddling with trying to line it up with their goggles for like 30 seconds. It would just be them slapping it on top of this headset. This is the one that I have, so it's the easiest one for me to like think through a solution for that problem, but I love the fact that this separates into two different parts and would allow me to build something that could attach to this monitor here. So those are the things that I'm trying to do this week. Thank you guys very much. Steven, you got anything to say to wrap up? Or are you good?
Good, brother.
All right. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. We really do appreciate that. Any comments down below, I will try to get better at responding to those. I very rarely, just as an artist or someone who puts stuff out into the world, go back and watch it. But Steven is always kicking my butt to do that. And that's a huge part of the reason I like doing this as well, is that community aspect. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you could tell me that might help me along this journey, I would greatly appreciate that information, and we'll reach out to you guys. So yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.